Hi guys, this week we're going to be reading the book I Wonder Why Penguins Can't Fly and Other Questions About Polar Lands. This is a nonfiction text and it's going to go along with our study that's really going to focus on hitting text features and reviewing what we already know and building on our knowledge or our schema of text features. This is a nonfiction text, meaning it is real. I Wonder Why Penguins Can't Fly and Other Questions About Polar Lands by Pat Jacobs. The first thing we're going to see when we open up our story is a table of contents. I like to think of the table of contents as a map of our story or a map of the book you are reading. It allows you to find specific things that you want to read about and gives you the page number to turn to. If you only wanted to focus on why aren't polar bears white, you would go to page 16. Or why is Antarctica colder than the Arctic? I could just go straight to page 7. I wouldn't have to read up until that point. So I love the table of contents, especially when using nonfiction text. It helps me find the information that I am looking for. We are also focusing this week, as I said, on text features. This is a major text feature. So as we're reading our story or our book for this week, focus on the different text features that you can see during the read aloud. This will be the first half of the book, and the next video for Read Aloud, you will see the second half of the book. Where are the poles? The North Pole lies at the center of the Arctic Circle. At the North Pole, wherever you turn, you'll be facing south. The South Pole is at the opposite end of Earth, in the middle of the Antarctic Circle on the continent of Antarctica. Here we have some different points in Antarctica. Highest points, lowest points, the highest point of ice. Why is Antarctica the highest and lowest continent? The thick ice sheet makes Antarctica the world's highest continent with an average height of 7,900 feet, or 2,400 meters. At 8,383 feet, or 555 meters, below sea level, the Bentley Subglacial Trench in West Antarctica is the lowest place on Earth that is not underwater. Here's our map, or a representation of Earth. We've got the geographic North Pole with the Arctic Circle, geographic South Pole with the Antarctic Circle, and you can see some of our continents on their representation of Earth. At the poles, the sun rises and sets only once a year, so a day lasts for 12 months. Can you imagine a day lasting for 12 months? Whew. Because Earth is tilted, one pole faces the sun for 6 months while the other pole is dark, and then the opposite pole has 6 months of daylight. Good night. Why are there 4 poles? Earth is a giant magnet, which is why a compass points to the North Pole. The geographic North and South Poles are fixed points, but because Earth's magnetic field is always changing, the magnetic North and South Poles move every day. Magnetic North Pole. How can North become South? Every so often, Earth's magnetic field reverses, so a compass that pointed north would then point south. This last occurred more than 780,000 years ago, and scientists think that is due to happen again. Notice they think. We don't know for sure what's going to happen. Can deserts be snowy? Very cold air cannot hold much water, so it rarely snows at the poles. Parts of the Arctic are as dry as the Sahara Desert, and Antarctica is the driest continent on Earth. In fact, it is the world's biggest desert. A camel in the Sahara, the world's largest hot desert. Were the poles always frozen? About 100 to 65 million years ago, the climate was warmer than it is today, and the polar ice caps did not exist. Forests reached as far as the South Pole and were home to dinosaurs, such as the Antarctoclopeta left. Woo! Antarctica is the world's windiest place. The winds that blow around the coast can reach speeds of about 190 miles per hour. Wow. Or 300 kilometers per hour. How cold are the poles? In Antarctica in 1983, a temperature of negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 89.2 degrees Celsius was recorded, cold enough to freeze the mercury in a thermometer. The winter temperature at the North Pole averages negative 29 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 34 degrees Celsius. That is 30 degrees Fahrenheit or 17 degrees Celsius colder than a freezer. Think of how cold your freezer is when you've reached in to get a popsicle or your ice cream, or maybe you're helping someone cook. It's pretty cold. The winter temperature at the North Pole is much, much colder. A polar bear in the Arctic, the world's second largest cold desert. North Pole, top of the world. See, we have the Arctic Ocean. South Pole, bottom of the world, Antarctica. Why is Antarctica colder than the Arctic? Antarctica is a continent surrounded by the sea. While the Arctic is an ocean surrounded by land, water stays warmer than land during the winter. So, on average, Antarctica is about 30 degrees Fahrenheit or 17 degrees Celsius colder than the Arctic. Brr. How are icebergs formed? Icebergs are huge blocks of freshwater ice that break off from glaciers or from the ice shelf and float out to sea. The largest known iceberg was bigger than the island of Jamaica, and the tallest was the height of a 55-story building. How thick is polar ice? Sea ice in the Arctic is about 10 feet or 3 meters thick during the winter. The thickest ice is found in the Bentley Subglacial Trench, the lowest point in Antarctica. There, the ice measures up to 15,670 feet or 4,776 meters. That is almost 6 times the height of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. At 2,717 feet or 828 meters, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, is the tallest building in the world. There's a picture of it. Ice flows slowly from the center of Antarctica to the coast. An iceberg floating in the sea today could contain snow that fell on the South Pole during the time of the Neanderthals, early humans who lived about 100,000 years ago. Only about 1/8 of an iceberg can be seen. The rest is hidden below the water. Small icebergs are called growlers because they often make a growling noise as trapped air escapes from ice. What is permafrost? Permafrost is ground that is frozen all year long. In 2007, a perfectly preserved baby mammoth thought to have died 10,000 years ago was unearthed from the permafrost in Siberia, Russia. What lights up the sky? The solar wind carries electrically charged particles from the sun toward Earth. Some particles enter our atmosphere above the magnetic poles and collide with Earth's gases, creating a fantastic light show called the Northern or Southern Lights. What is diamond dust? When the air temperature is very low, water vapor in the atmosphere freezes to form tiny ice crystals. These catch the sun's light and sparkle like a sprinkling of diamonds in the sky. A whiteout occurs when low white clouds cover the sky and the snow and the sky merge into one. People say that it is like being trapped inside a huge white ball. A Brocken specter is a large ghostly figure with a rainbow halo. It is actually a person's shadow cast by a low sun onto distant fog. Which dogs are found at the poles? Sundogs are bright flares that appear on either side of the sun when ice crystals in the sky reflect the sunlight. Moondogs are sometimes seen too when the moon is very bright. Does anyone live in Antarctica? No one lives there permanently, but Antarctica is visited by about 4,000 scientists during the summer. Only about 1,000 stay to brave the cold, dark winter, though. Who first came to the poles? American explorers Frederick Cook and Robert Peary both claim to have reached the North Pole first. Cook in 1908 and Peary in 1909. Roald Amundsen led the first expedition to the South Pole, arriving in December 1911. Early polar explorers used huskies to pull their sleds, but today dogs are banned from Antarctica to protect the wildlife. Researchers at Antarctica's Concordia Research Station studying the effects of living in space are trying to find out if wearing socks at night could help astronauts sleep. Traditional explorers' rations included pemmican, dried meat and fat cakes. That doesn't sound very tasty. And a special type of cracker. In 1999, a cracker from Scott's 1910 expedition was sold for $6,500 for a cracker. Can you imagine paying $6,500 for a cracker? That was from 1910. I hope they didn't try to eat it. Do people still build igloos? The word igloo means house in Inuit language. So people in the Arctic do live in igloos, but igloos made of snow are now built only as temporary shelters during hunting trips. Norwegian Roald Amundsen reached the South Pole 1 month before Great Britain's Captain Robert Falcon Scott. And Falcon Scott, that's whose cracker was sold. Are there any polar plants? The poles are covered in ice all year long, but plants grow in less cold areas called the tundra. For a few weeks in the middle of the summer, the Arctic tundra is carpeted in color as plants that have spent the winter beneath the snow burst into bloom. The tundra's flowers attract many insects, so birds flock there during the summer to raise their families and make the most of the insect feast. You see them all in their van. How do plants survive the cold? Tundra plants huddle close to the ground in tight clumps and often have hairy leaves and stems to protect them from the cold. Cup-shaped flowers follow the sun as it moves across the sky. A snowy owl catches a lemming for its chicks. Most owls are active only when it is dark, but snowy owls hunt in daylight too. Otherwise, they would starve during the Arctic summer when the sun never sets. Which trees grow in the treeless tundra? The word tundra comes from a Finnish word meaning treeless plain, so you would not expect to find any trees there. Yet, a type of willow only 8 inches tall has adapted to the cold, windy climate and provides food for caribou, muskoxen, Arctic hares, and lemmings. It's adapted. We've been talking about that in science. Here's an illustration of an Arctic willow and some caribou. Permafrost stops melting snow from sinking into the ground, so it forms pools of water that are perfect nurseries for mosquito larvae. They're young. Sometimes the mosquito swarms are so large that they turn the sky gray. Can you imagine seeing that many mosquitoes that the sky is gray? No, thank you. In the summer, animals such as snowy owls and caribou take advantage of the plentiful food to raise their young and fatten up for the winter. How do animals survive the Arctic winter? In the winter, temperatures in the Arctic drop to negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit, so polar animals grow a thick winter coat to keep them warm. The Arctic fox even has fur on the bottom of its feet and uses its bushy tail as a blanket. An Arctic fox hears small animals moving in their underground burrows. It pounces to break through the snow and then grabs its prey. Beneath its thick coat, the polar bear has black skin that absorbs heat from the sun and keeps the animal warm. Why aren't polar bears white? If you plucked a few hairs from a polar bear, you would find that they are colorless. Like snow and ice, the hairs are translucent. Light passes through them, but they look white to us. Collared lemmings are a favorite food for Arctic predators. A large family of Arctic foxes can eat up to 4,000 lemmings before the young leave the den. Which creatures change color? Arctic wolves, foxes, and ermines turn white in the winter so they can creep up on their prey without being seen. Arctic hares and collared lemmings grow white fur too, so predators find them difficult to spot in the snow. The Arctic ground squirrel hibernates from September to April to escape the winter cold. Its body temperature drops to 27 degrees Fahrenheit during its 7-month sleep. That's the end of part 1.